Hi, well, good afternoon to you all. It's certainly been a while. Today is Christmas Eve, yep, 24th of December, and that's 2023. So the last time I did a video or a talk video for this channel of mine on YouTube was actually mid-March 2021. Yep, that's right, almost 3 years ago, or if you want to be exact, basically 2 and 3/4 years ago. So it's been a very, very long time. Hey, I'm back, Hirsch Saha, and reporting now from Auckland. I was in Wellington earlier. Now I'm in Auckland with a new landlord and everything, and that explains the difference in background too. But yeah, actually, I've got a bit of a special message today. The reason why I didn't post any videos for the last basically almost 3 years is actually because from the month after I posted my previous video. A previous video was March 2021. So the month after that, April 2021, I actually became very ill, unfortunately, very mentally ill. I do suffer from a mental illness. And long story short, I saw my doctor who prescribed some different meds because I thought I wanted to change my meds, try to find something which was stronger than what I was on, and unfortunately he screwed them up. So he screwed up the or what he prescribed, the meds to me. He screwed that up. So I became sick, and then I saw a very, very expensive specialist. I thought, geez, I better take this seriously. So I ditched that doctor, saw a very expensive specialist, had to wait about 2 months just for the appointment. And guess what he did? He screwed up the meds even further. So I went from normal to sick, and then from sick to very sick, mentally sick, and I had to drop everything. I had to drop my job, my side business, and everything. I had to move in with family for their constant support, emotional support, which was obviously not good. And basically, the rest of 2021 and well into 2022, and even into this year, 2023, was pretty much the worst time of my life, and I still haven't completely fully recovered. So it wasn't good, and I kept wondering, why me? What's happening? We went from doctor to doctor to specialist, and things just really kept getting worse and worse. And then eventually, we just went back on the meds I was originally on, which perhaps don't do as much as I wanted them to do, but at least do something when all the other meds I was prescribed just made things worse and worse and very bad at sometimes. And then it was only March this year, 2023, that I came across a very interesting article in Stuff. Stuff.co.nz is a media website with news for my country where I am in New Zealand. And I came across a very interesting article, which you might have heard, like in the US and America for many decades. It's very unfortunate. Drug companies have really been pushing doctors and specialists to prescribe and therefore sell their meds. They give them all sorts of incentives. You hear about things like commissions, just payments, paid trips to here and there, and that's obviously not a good thing. They're basically bribing the doctors and specialists to prescribe their meds. And unfortunately, a lot of the doctors and specialists get corrupted by it. And don't forget, this is people's lives. I mean, the right meds, or even pretty good meds, can help you a lot, but the wrong meds can make you feel much, much worse, maybe even to a point where you're so depressed or mentally ill that you might even commit suicide, or you just, can no longer function, you can't do much, which is what pretty much what happened to me. And this article is saying that a recent investigation, at least from March this year going back, they uncovered that unfortunately the exact same thing happens here in New Zealand, and I was actually really shocked. Maybe I was just naive to it, who knows? But I was actually very shocked because you just wouldn't expect that sort of thing to happen here in New Zealand. We basically pride ourselves on being one of the least corrupted countries in the world on earth. And you really would expect that to happen in a country like the US. And maybe I shouldn't say, but the US, really, to be quite blunt, it really is a very backward nation. And I mean that. I know that's probably not the nicest thing to say, but it really is a backward nation. I mean, this is a country that calls themselves the greatest in the world just because they're the wealthiest. And, as if wealth is everything. There's obviously much more to a country, much more to its people, than just their wealth. You cannot measure how great a country is just by its wealth. Definitely not. And don't forget where that wealth came from. Hundreds of years of African American slavery, and even today you hear things things like exploiting poor countries through sweatshops and cheap labor, all that. And and really, I mean, I'll say it again. You would expect that sort of corruption with doctors and um, specialists being bribed by drug companies to prescribe their drugs. You would expect that in a country like the US, because it really is a backward country. They call themselves the greatest on earth just because they're the wealthiest. They they elect a president who's a white supremacist. Even though he's orange. It's just, oh my god. I probably should, maybe I shouldn't say anymore, but it really, yeah, it's. I wouldn't call it the greatest country on earth just because it's the wealthiest. Um, so, so yeah, it's very sad. This thing happens right here in New Zealand, and the article actually named and shamed a lot of doctors and specialists and how much they've been paid for prescribing their meds. And this is what I truly believe happened to me, because I keep wondering how come we went from doctor to doctor, from specialist to specialist, and they all kept screwing up my meds. I remember one doctor, actually in the public sector, I took a med he prescribed, and I took just one pill of it on one day, and I was immediately very, very, very sick. And so I stopped taking them, and I went back to him, and I expected him to prescribe something else, but he actually got really angry at me, and he actually discharged me. Normally, you hear of patients leaving their doctors, but this doctor actually discharged me. He couldn't care less, and he's like, "Oh, look, if you don't want to listen to me, if you don't want to listen to my advice, which is right, then you can just go and yeah." So I found that kind of odd. But then when I read this article, it just kind of all came clear to me. That is truly what I believe happened to me, and I think it's really sad. And just whenever I get the chance, I tell people, because I think it's a huge worry, especially for anyone who has mental illnesses who takes drugs for them. And what I strongly recommend to people is that doesn't mean you don't take drugs if you suffer from mental illnesses. Definitely not, because the drugs or the meds can help a lot. It just means that when you're prescribed something, Google it, really Google it to see what's really behind it, if it's even right for you. Um, One, Google it, and secondly, get a second opinion, get another opinion. That is what I would strongly recommend. So yeah, it's pretty sad that this happened and happened to me. I basically lost a good 2.5 years of my life. I couldn't do much for that time, and it is really sad. And I think it's aged me, and I think that kind of shows. And yeah, but now I think, hey, I just want to pass it on to as many other people as I can, because if I can save just one person, from not having to go through what I went through, well, then it wouldn't have been in vain. If I could save just two people from not having to go through what I went through, then it would have been worth it. If it's three or more people, well, then they'll just be beyond. So, yeah, so just keep that in mind. Mental illness, either you suffer from it or you know someone who does. So if you suffer from it, take this message, take it very well. If you know someone who does, be sure to tell them. Yeah, and that's my first video coming back in December 2023. Thank you. Bye.